Namaskar, this is Akhilesh Bhargav. Welcome to Tit-Bits on Business and Finance with me. Banks in India, particularly those in the public sector, continue to be crisis-ridden. Their financial position is extremely weak. They are unable to conduct any new worthy business, and the NPA crisis remains unresolved. The reality is that the NPA crisis that banks face was actually bequeathed to the Modi government by the UPA government. It is during the UPA time that reckless lending took place, resulting in those humongous NPAs that we are witnessing, and they continue to be unresolved. But then, the reality also is that the Modi government was late in realizing the enormity and magnitude of the NPA problem, and their measures were actually not enough in order to tackle the crisis. If the Modi government had acted on time and it had acted immediately, maybe at the moment we would have seen some kind of a resolution of the NPA crisis on the horizon. But that has not happened. So banks continue to be troubled in India. They are troubled by the NPA crisis. They are troubled by the existing NPAs, and they are also troubled by the potential NPAs which keep surfacing from time to time. Their business is suffering because of the economic slowdown that we are facing at the moment, and the slowdown continues. And because of this slowdown, corporate profits have dipped, demand for credit has dipped, consumer demand has dipped, and banks are not able to resume lending on a bigger basis. So their business continues to languish because of the slowdown that is there. They are not getting new worthy borrowers, and bankers are preferring to sit on money rather than get into any further risky lending. Not that there is much demand from worthy borrowers at the moment. The biggest issue has been that the IBC, the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, and the NCLT, which were touted as the complete solution to the NPA crisis, they have proved to be a non-starter. The IBC turned out to be yet another Indian law, and the NCLT turned out to be yet another Indian court, where there are delays, where there is mysterious litigation, and where the time-based resolution that the government has promised did not really come by. Resultantly, banks today do not prefer to take their NPA cases to the NCLT, fearing all the delays that will take place, and they prefer to resolve it on their own. The only time that banks at the moment prefer to go to the NCLT is when they know that there cannot be a resolution of the NPA account and a liquidation is imminent. So that has been a huge dampener. And because of that, the entire NPA crisis that is there has actually, according to us, only grown bigger. And these findings of the banking sector get confirmed by a number of recent reports. Standard & Poor, S&P, in one of their reports on the Indian banking sector says that any recovery of the banking sector is still years away. They say that the recovery will be very slow because of various reasons, one of which is the slow resolution of the existing NPAs. It is the slow resolution of the NPAs which is holding back banks, which is preventing their revival and coming back into normal operations. Along with that, they say, is the stress in the corporate sector, because of which there is expected to be a continuation of a spurt in corporate defaults, which will only give rise to new NPAs. So while the banks may resolve existing NPAs, the new ones that keep surfacing are undoing what they resolved. S&P rightly points out that the additional capital that the government is infusing into the banks is only going to meet the losses on account of past NPAs and the haircuts that the banks are giving. Thus, it is not really substantially improving the financial position of the banks. And to top it, you have the economic slowdown. The economic slowdown is not just impacting the economy, but also the banks, and it is weakening the earnings of the corporate sector as well as the banking sector, thus delaying its revival. What S&P says is being further confirmed by Credit Suisse. A report of Credit Suisse says that it expects another spurt in NPAs in India. Credit Suisse says that from the present level of NPAs, which are taken at 9.6% of the bank assets, Credit Suisse says it will shoot up to over 12% again. And the reason is, it points out that of the 240,000 crores worth of NPAs which the banks are trying to resolve at the moment, 70% of them are in chronic default mode. The chances of their revival and their recovery is very poor. So S&P expects, Credit Suisse expects that out of these NPAs of 240,000, a substantial amount are going to be declared to be NPAs that can't be recovered and will add to the woes of the banks. It rightly points out that out of these, 42% are corporates which don't even earn enough in order to repay interest to banks. Credit Suisse also points out the slowdown in the economy and the further corporate defaults which are expected, which will only add to the difficulties that banks face in India today. The reality, according to us, is what has the government been doing in order to revive the banking sector? It has been pumping in new capital. It has tinkered regulations here and there, and its main dependence on resolving the NPA crisis was the IBC and the NCLT, which we said have proved to be a non-starter. The government never really realized the enormity of the problem and came up with a complete package of measures in order to root out the problem, in order to cure the problem. It was never recognized in its full momentum that the real cause for the NPA crisis that we face is two factors. One is, of course, the gross mismanagement of banks in India, and the second one, which is complementary to the first one, has been the bureaucratic and political meddling in the functioning of banks in India. There has been a corrupt and criminal nexus between the Neta, the Babu and the Baniya. And because of that, fraudulent, reckless, frivolous loans of huge size have been given, and they have inflicted pretty fatal injury to banks in India. That is what explains the loans that were given to the likes of Sterling Biotech, to the likes of ILFS, Nirav Modi, Bhushan Steel, Videocon, and many others. There has been no attempt to actually negate this lethal impact on the functioning, profitability, and financial situation of banks. All that has happened at the moment so far is investigations have been going on, court procedures are on, some kind of cases have been filed, but beyond that, there hasn't been any complete measure to root out this cause of political and bureaucratic meddling. And according to us, this nexus, this dubious nexus, has not been banished, and it will come back at some point of time to haunt the banking system again and perhaps cause an even more bigger NPA crisis when it does come back. So two factors which have caused the entire crisis, which is mismanagement and this political bureaucratic meddling in banks, has not been tackled at all so far. And because the government measures have not been complete and they have not been enough, all these corrupt Neta, Babu, Baniya, banker, they have gone away scot-free generally, and no suitable action has been taken against them. So what goes on in the moment is recapitalization of banks. Last week, the FM announced another infusion of 70,000 crores into banks by way of capital. The FM has also assured bankers that in case any bona fide lending decisions go bad, the bankers are not going to be hounded by the CBI, CBC and the CAG. But these are not going to be enough to revive and recover banks. At the moment, even if the government keeps pumping in capital, the revival of the functioning of banks is now going to move in tandem with growth in the economy, growth in corporate sales and profits, and growth in consumer demand. Until those don't grow, banks are not going to be revived. And the more they are delayed, the more there will be chances of corporate defaults. And the more the corporate defaults, they will only add to the woes of India's struggling banks. This is Akhilesh Bhargav signing off till we meet again. Namaskar.
Now be the first to know about the latest updates on our new news app. Go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.
HW News Network today is a year and a half old. Thanks to your support, thanks to your love, we've grown. We require your support a little more. what we request you to do is to download our free app. Our app is in Hindi, English and Marathi. We promise to update you with the latest news, views, analysis, interview. We also have a live TV going in that. If you download our app, we will get advertisers. And if we get advertisers, we'll get revenue. We get revenue, we can serve you better. So once again, please do support us. Please download our app. Namaskar.